Live from London, this is Global Business.
Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Jamie O.
And I'm Robin Dwyer. Our top stories. China's President Xi and Russia's President Putin hold a video call promising to further strengthen their partnership.
I'm at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where China's Vice Premier says there are no winners in a trade war.
We will drill, baby, drill.
US President Donald Trump declares a national energy emergency, withdraws from the Paris Climate Agreement and revokes dozens of Biden's environmental policies.
And Germany's Chancellor expresses optimism for relations with the new Trump administration, but not everyone in Europe is so sure.
President Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin want to strengthen the relationship between China and Russia.
Speaking on a video call, Xi said he wants to work with Putin to lead relations to a higher level and safeguard international fairness. His Russian counterpart says Moscow is willing to strengthen cooperation with Beijing.
China's Vice Premier used his special address at the World Economic Forum to warn against protectionism.
Ding Xuexiang said Beijing is willing to help balance global trade and insisted there are no winners in a trade war.
Our correspondent Juliet Mann is in Davos. Juliet, what else did China's Vice Premier have to say?
Hello, Jamie. Hello, Robin. Well, China's Vice Premier talked about global cooperation and told the World Economic Forum here in Davos that human societies are at a crossroads and that there's a tug-of-war going on between those who support economic globalization and those that don't. He said that protectionism is a road to nowhere and that there are no winners in a trade war, but he also outlined China's prospects for growth.
The first major trend is that high-quality development is making solid progress. This is a big highlight of the Chinese economy. Over the past year, the Chinese economy made steady progress while maintaining overall stability. China's GDP grew by 5%, one of the fastest among major economies. This year, China will further intensify macro policies and adopt a more proactive fiscal policy and an appropriately accommodative monetary policy. The second major trend is that green and low-carbon transition is accelerating across the board. This is a salient feature of the Chinese economy.
The European Commission's Ursula von der Leyen signalled that she wants the EU to work more closely with the United States. She acknowledged a new era of geostrategic competition. She said that trade barriers, things like sanctions, tariffs, export controls, are going to only lead to a global race to the bottom.
I believe that we must engage constructively with China to find solutions in our mutual interest. 2025 marks 50 years of our union's diplomatic relations with China. I see it as an opportunity to engage and deepen our relationship with China and, where possible, even to expand our trade and investment ties.
Ursula von der Leyen talking there about deepening the relationship with China. So let's talk a little bit more about that with our guests. Do come on into position. It's great to see you, Xu Lang, from the you're the Chun Kong Chair at Tsinghua University. So let's start with Vice Premier Ding's speech, which talked about China as a key engine for growth and the need to build a just world for common economic development. What stood out to you from what he had to say?
I think the first thing is that his confidence is still in the economic globalization. So he talked about how that actually can bring the benefits to the world and to the people. But at the same time, he acknowledged that indeed there might be some people and countries left behind. So he talked about how can we actually not only make the pie larger, but how to share the pie better. I think so. That's where he talked about how actually we can work together to build capacity in developing countries and to get them also to up to the speed in the economic development.
And maybe to give the Global South a louder voice?
Louder voice as well, exactly. So that's probably the first thing. The second thing, I think he talked about China as the engine of the global economic growth, and he also acknowledged that China's facing some difficulties in making the transition, particularly to a high-quality economic growth. And he's very confident that the innovation capacity in China and will help China and with the world to move to that to the high-quality growth. And the third thing I think is interesting, he talked about the the AI, how AI can bring benefits, but also at the same time you have to watch about the potential risks. So he talked about China's approach to AI development. It's basically development and the safety and security, two wheels to drive that development. At the same time, he also mentioned about that China will not blindly to compete for big models. China will try to benefit. You use AI for the benefit of people rather than competing for big models.
Let's talk about China's relationship with the US quickly. The second largest economy, faces the possibility of tariffs now with the freshly inaugurated Trump in the White House. Having heard what Ding had to say, how do you see the relationship between China and the US moving forward?
I think Ding didn't really mention the U.S. directly. He mentioned about, I think that China has been very much trying to keep the economy open. I think China's tariff on average is about 7.3, which is actually much lower than a lot of people expect. So I think China is wanted to continue in that. I think that's a tacit response to the, to the trade threat. To the tariff threat. So I think that also given the current interactions between the U.S. and China, we have the Vice President Han Zheng in the inaugural meeting, and so I think hopefully that this might bring a new chapter of the U.S.-China relationship.
A new chapter. Well, Xu Luang, thank you very much for joining us on Global Business Europe, direct from Davos. Now, as our guest mentioned there, artificial intelligence was mentioned by Ding and is also a key theme here at the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum. The theme is collaboration for an intelligent age. So I'm going to be back a little bit later, aren't I, Jamie and Robin, to talk about AI, the opportunities, the risks, the advances in the systems and in the technology. A little bit later on.
Juliet, thank you for that. Our correspondent Juliet Mann in Davos.
US President Donald Trump has promised his second term in office will usher in the golden age of America.
Within hours of his return to the White House, he signed a flurry of executive orders. Our correspondent Ray Addison reports.
Sweeping change with the stroke of a pen. America's 47th president wasted no time to impose his will on the US government, moving swiftly to issue a raft of far-reaching executive orders.
First, I'll revoke nearly 80 destructive and radical executive actions of the previous administration, one of the worst administrations in history, maybe not one of them, the worst. Anybody that would allow millions of people to pour through our borders.
Trump moved quickly to clamp down on illegal immigration, declaring a national emergency at the US-Mexico border and ending a policy granting citizenship on those born in the United States. Echoing his first term in office, President Trump once again withdrew the United States from the Paris climate deal and began the year-long process of leaving the World Health Organization, accusing it of mishandling the COVID-19 pandemic and requiring unfairly onerous payments. The WHO responded by saying it regretted Trump's decision.
We hope the United States will reconsider, and we look forward to engaging in constructive dialogue to maintain the partnership between the United States of America and WHO.
Trump also pardoned about 1,500 of his supporters who attacked the US Capitol 4 years ago and ordered 14 leaders of far-right militant groups to be released from prison early, but left their convictions intact.
From this moment on, America's decline is over.
Billionaire Elon Musk's new role, cutting swathes of government spending, was confirmed with the creation of the Department of Government Efficiency. Trump also ordered a freeze on federal hiring. Meanwhile, Trump also said he would issue orders to scrap federal diversity programs and require the government to recognize only 2 genders assigned at birth. For many Americans, Trump's orders may feel like a return to common sense. Others will be deeply concerned that the progressive policies introduced by President Biden are being wiped away. What is certain is that Trump will face huge pushback and legal challenges as he once again attempts to remake the country in his own image. Ray Addison, CGTN.
Let's talk now to Associated Press correspondent Philip Crowther, who's in Washington. So, Philip, all these executive orders being signed, but also a national energy emergency being declared by President Trump.
Yeah, all sorts of measures when it comes to energy were signed by Donald Trump on his first day in office. Maybe in the long term, the most controversial one, though, and the most consequential one, in fact, is the announcement from Donald Trump that the United States is again going to get out of the Paris Climate Agreement. That means that the pressure in the future on the United States to cut carbon emissions here in this country will be lower. The United States will not be included in climate negotiations anymore, exactly what the Trump White House, of course, wants. So that might have a huge impact on energy in the United States. As for these executive orders and an energy national emergency that was declared by President Trump yesterday, what it will do in the immediate term is it will increase oil and gas production in Alaska, for example, in areas that were supposed to be protected during the Biden administration. Permitting for oil and gas production is supposed to be sped up. This means that environmental protections will be going down. The production of wind, for example, as energy will be going down as well. These are promises from the campaign trail from Donald Trump. These are promises that he wants to make sure he is keeping. He particularly dislikes wind as a source of energy here in the United States. Why, though, a national energy emergency? Well, the Trump White House is essentially making this argument. It improves U.S. national security because the United States would no longer depend as much or even less on foreign energy production and could get more of its energy, or give more of its energy production rather, to its allies. It might seem a little bit far-fetched, but those are the reasons given for the United States in the second Trump administration to declare a national energy emergency.
And Philip, the new president also issuing pardons for those involved in the Capitol Hill riots.
Yes, and those were huge in number and very controversial indeed. Donald Trump yesterday, with the stroke of a pen, essentially pardoning almost everybody who was involved and charged with being involved in the January 6th riot when his supporters entered the Capitol unlawfully. That means that around 1,500 people have been pardoned, including those who attacked police officers on January 6th of 2021. We now know that some of the far-right group leaders who were imprisoned as a result of that riot have also now been freed. Donald Trump on the campaign trail and again during his inaugural address calling these people who were behind bars hostages. Now, those were pardons that were announced by President Trump on day one of his presidency. On the very last day of his presidency, former now President Joe Biden also announced pardons, preemptive pardons, for those who were leading and were involved in the congressional investigation into what happened on January 6th of 2021. He said, Joe Biden, when he was still president and issued those pardons, that he was afraid that there could be revenge actions taken by this new Trump White House against those who investigated him for his role in that riot.
Philip, thank you very much. Associated Press correspondent Philip Crowther in Washington.
Donald Trump has also launched a sweeping border crackdown, declaring illegal immigration a national emergency. This comes as an app set up under the Biden administration that allowed migrants to apply to enter the United States legally is cut off. Our correspondent Tony Waterman is in the Texas border city of Eagle Pass. Tony, Donald Trump starting his immigration crackdown, although presumably some of these measures are likely to face strong political and legal challenges.
Yeah, certainly, Jamie. And within hours of some of those executive orders being signed, some lawsuits were already filed. The one that is getting the most scrutiny is the order that ends birthright citizenship for children born to undocumented parents. That order also does not give citizenship to people children that are born to parents who are in the country temporarily, so people that are on work visas, student visas, or tourist visas. At least 2 lawsuits have now been filed on that order alone. Migrant rights groups saying that the order is overtly racist and that it's in direct violation of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which for the past 160 years has granted citizenship to basically anyone that was born on U.S. soil. The only exception are diplomats who are still under the jurisdiction of their home countries. This particular order is very likely to land before the conservative Supreme Court. There could also be lawsuits on other orders, particularly the reinstatement of the Remain in Mexico policy, which requires people seeking asylum to stay in Mexico during that process. It was heavily challenged when it was first introduced under Trump's first term in power. We could also see lawsuits around asylum. One of the first things that happened when Trump regained power was that this CBP1 program was shut down. This is a mobile app that has allowed nearly 1 million asylum seekers to get appointments here in the United States, and it's a legal pathway to their asylum cases. That was shut down. Thousands of individuals who had appointments have been turned away at the border, and as you'd imagine, some of them are very, very upset.
There are many people who really need asylum and who travelled due to delicate issues. Most of us have faced difficult things when we left our countries. I have brothers in the United States and I wanted to go there because my country is dangerous.
Well, not everybody is upset by these executive orders. Among Trump's supporters and immigration hawks, they have praised these dozen or so orders that were signed on Monday. And certainly a lot of Border Patrol agents, law enforcement agents, see this as a very pivotal and necessary shift in U.S. policy. These are individuals that, in their words, believe that the United States is being invaded by gang members, by criminals, by terrorists on a regular basis, and they have felt very let down by the Biden administration, even as we have seen the number of border crossings drop dramatically in the last year. Arrests are down 80% on year, partly due to Biden policy, but also help from Mexican officials that have been stopping these caravans. But this is an issue that is going to be front and center in the campaign, rather in the presidency now, of Donald Trump.
Tony, thank you for that. Our correspondent, Tony Waterman in Texas.
David Dunn is a professor of international politics at the University of Birmingham in the UK. I asked him what the swathe of executive orders shows about how President Trump intends to conduct this term in office.
He's an old man in a hurry, I think, is what it tells us. The pace, the speed, the number of executive orders and the range of those executive orders shows that he has really had a team of people prepared for office. And he enters office with a sense of momentum and confidence that he didn't have 8 years ago. And what he has is a clear set of plans to act on his instincts and his prejudices and his promises to the electorate on a whole range of subjects. So we can see and expect a fairly radical, disruptive set of policies across the issue agenda, from foreign policy, breaking norms there. For example, his inaugural speech didn't mention the word allies once. He only talked about them obliquely to criticise them. In trade policy, we can expect a disruption from the last 80 years of free trade and a move towards a protectionist policy, which is likely to be disruptive and inflationary and anti-growth in terms of the impact on the global scene. In terms of actually what he does to relations with Russia and Iran, it's really an open question, but of great concern here in Europe as to what he does in terms of both the specifics of the Ukraine war and the implications of his tepid support for NATO. And of course there are other concerns about what he plans for the Panama Canal, for Greenland, or indeed for Canada. The mention of manifest destiny in the inauguration speech is a 19th century reference to an imperial striding for America. It's odd to see that in a 21st century speech by an American president. And of course, domestically in a whole wide of other fronts, he plans to get rid of the Department of Education, to gut the powers of the FBI, and possibly to use the FBI to go after political opponents. So this is a very different American president to the one that we've seen in our lifetimes, and the agenda is expansive and disruptive, and it will be interesting to watch.
China says it's concerned about Donald Trump's withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement.
The Foreign Ministry also called for the World Health Organization to be strengthened after the new US president announced those plans to leave the UN agency.
Our correspondent Wang Mengjie reports.
Before his inauguration, Trump reportedly said he would like to visit China in the first 100 days in office. In response, China's foreign ministry said on Monday that China stands ready to work with the new U.S. administration to maintain communication, enhance cooperation, properly manage and control the differences, and secure a greater progress in China-U.S. relationships from a new starting point. Commenting on China's expectations for the new U.S. administration, the ministry said the same day that China get ready to properly manage the differences with the new U.S. administration. As a stable, healthy and sustainable development of China-U.S. development and relationship is in the core interests of both countries and expectations of the international community. For China and the United States, two big countries with different national conditions, experts say it is natural to have some differences. But what matters most is how to manage the differences properly and not allow them to dictate the course of the relationship. For example, economic and trade cooperation could be the cornerstone of bilateral ties. Wang Mengjie, CGTN, Beijing.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, we're on Wall Street to see how investors are responding to Donald Trump's return to the White House.
Chinese paper cutting, known as jianzhe, is thought to have originated during the 6th century CE. However, some believe that its history could be traced back further. Usually the artworks are made of red paper, as the colour red is associated with festivities and luck in Chinese culture. Cut paper artwork is used as a way of decorating doors and windows during festivals such as Chinese New Year and weddings, symbolising good wishes and happiness. The common tools used in Chinese paper cutting are scissors or an engraving knife. Yin and yang are the two main techniques used in paper cutting. Yin refers to the process of cutting out a defined shape, whereas yang refers to cutting out the negative space around that shape. Works are mainly divided into southern and northern styles. The southern style utilises fine and precise cuts to create intricate lace-like patterns, showcasing themes from nature such as plants and animals. The northern style is known for its exaggerated shapes and vigorous designs, emphasising strong lines, symmetry and contrast, and often features themes from Chinese mythology and historical figures. Today, paper cutting is one of the most popular folk arts in China.
Hello, welcome back to Global Business Europe. Donald Trump's first day back in the White House has seen global markets sway as investors try to figure out what this administration will do on tariffs. The dollar rebounded after falling on Monday. Let's talk to our correspondent, John Terrett. Just talk us through the market reaction then to the return of President Trump.
Well, the thing is, of course, we were closed here yesterday, so everybody here was at home watching the proceedings on television, which went very, very late into the night. I mean, early in the morning, European time and London time. We were still watching him at the Capital One Centre, then he went to the White House where he signed loads more executive orders, then he went to a ball where he danced with his wife Melania. So this went very, very late for us. And so when the markets came on duty this morning early on, I think the feeling was really a sense of a little bit of relief. And I'll try to tell you why, because you are right, Jamie, you are quite accurate, that nobody really knows where we're going. And a lot depends on what President Trump actually does and when he does it and how he does it. But things are a little bit clearer here. And so the markets are soaring away at the moment. The yields are down. Earnings are coming in for the fourth quarter. They're pretty good so far. Are expected to be good as they go on. But the key word here for this rally is tariffs. Or, put another way, no mention of tariffs. That's the thing, you see. In the whole of yesterday, there was hardly any mention of them. OK, there was a little bit about Canada and Mexico, which I'll get to in just a second. But the big one is China, and he hardly mentioned it at all. Now, in some of the paperwork that has come out since he took office again, there is talk about things like currency misalignment, overweight trade balances and that sort of stuff. And that is China. That's what they're talking about. But President Trump has asked his team, his new incoming team, to look at all the issues regarding tariffs against China, and they have a deadline of the 1st of April to do it. So it's not too far to go, but also it isn't going to happen this week. And that's the thing, because we were all wondering what he would actually do on day number one, and he did not touch on China tariffs, which means the China tariff policy is not in place. And that's a large part of the rally here today. And also, it is no coincidence whatsoever, Jamie, that attending that inauguration yesterday, and not only attending it, but in the very room, the rotunda where it took place, and sitting just a few seats away, were key tech CEOs, people like Sundar Pichai of Google, Mark Zuckerberg of Meta Platforms, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and Tim Cook of Apple. There's absolutely no coincidence whatsoever that they were there. Now, there was mention of tariffs against Mexico and Canada late in the evening when he was in the Oval Office. He said, yes, 25%. I'm thinking of the 1st of April for those to go in. But generally speaking, the fact that China was not really brought up means that we have some stocks soaring today, including all the car companies, actually, with the exception of Tesla now. But GM, Ford, Stellantis, which sends 40% of its vehicles to the United States, they're all up now because although he mentioned Canada and Mexico for tariffs, there was nothing really specific, you see, not really. He vaguely said perhaps the 1st of February. And also China stocks are up for the same reason. Alibaba is up now, Xiaopeng, for example, for all the same reasons that I'm talking about. Now, finally, Bitcoin is soaring, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, we have a cryptocurrency pro-president, so it's up 1.3% at the moment. But over the weekend, Trump and Melania issued their own coins. Dollar Trump and Dollar Melania. Dollar Trump is already worth about $11 billion, Dollar Melania about $1 billion. But you should understand, these are fun coins. They're meme coins. They don't really have any utilitarian value, so you can't really buy things with them like you can with Ethereum and with Bitcoin. So they are just an investment, and they have traction because people around the world clearly have bought into them because they want to be associated with something that President Trump and his wife Melania have actually started. The crypto world, though, the crypto universe is a little bit unhappy with them because they see it as a cash grab. Trump people own 80% of these coins, 20% only by other people, and you've seen how much they've gone up already, so they're already in the money, although presumably it's going to have to be put to one side for the next 4 years while he actually runs the country. Guys?
John, after an exhausting 24 hours, it's only Tuesday. What does the rest of the week hold?
I know. I need a week off to recover from yesterday. I mean, it just went on and on and on, and they were running late. And, of course, you can't stop watching because you want to know what he's going to say, what he's going to do. And you've already reported on all the executive orders that he did sign yesterday, including, I should just say, TikTok, of course. He signed it rather blithely. Somebody had to say, sir, was that the TikTok thing? Oh, yeah, that was TikTok. So TikTok has 75 days to work out what we're going to do with that. Netflix tonight, after the closing bell, Netflix shares up 1% now. They had a great fourth quarter. They had the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight in Vegas. That was the most streamed event ever. They had 2 NFL games on Christmas Day. They've got the return of Squid Games. So we're expecting 11 million new subscribers when they announce their earnings. But look for price hikes sometime soon. Maybe not announced today, but actually very soon. Netflix shares up 1%. And the rally, to put some numbers on it, Dow's up 400 points. S&P 500 is up 0.5%. Yields are down. And as I've already said, Bitcoin is up as well.
John, thank you for that. Our correspondent, John Terrace, in New York. The German Chancellor has expressed cautious optimism over relations with the United States. Speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Olaf Scholz said Berlin had already held positive talks with the new administration. Let's talk now to our correspondent, Trent Murray, who's in Berlin for us. What did the Chancellor have to say about the new president?
Yeah, Jamie, cautious optimism, I think, is the precise way to describe it. As you said, Olaf Scholz speaking there in Davos, saying that for Germany, the US is one of its most important partners, and for that reason, he wants to make sure that it stays that way. He said he's using his time in office here in Germany to ensure that conversations with President Trump are positive. He said right now the conversations between him and the president and also their respective teams of advisors have been heading in the right direction. But we do know that there is some real trepidation here in Berlin, given some of that rhetoric that they have seen from President Trump around tariffs. We know that Germany really does stand to lose quite a lot if that 20% tariff plan is indeed introduced on EU exports. There are some estimates here suggesting it will cost Germany $185 billion US dollars in lost growth over the next 4 years of this second Trump term. 15% of German exports to America could fall, and some 300,000 jobs are at stake. So this really is high-stakes stuff for the German Chancellor. He is trying to maintain that relationship, but I think he does know that Germany is somewhat in the firing line of some of these tariffs, given the trade deficit that exists. And just speaking about being in the firing line, we have also seen a bit of a brouhaha now between the Chancellor and the world's richest man, Elon Musk. In that speech in Davos, Olaf Scholz said that freedom of speech should not support far-right extremist views, to which Elon Musk has replied on X, shame on Olaf Schitz. He has spelt it S-C-H-I-T-Z. I'm trying to be very careful here. We believe that that is a bit of a phonetic play on words of a English language insult.
I guess the question is, how long is Olaf Scholz going to be round the table? Germany's heading to the polls next month. How do you think it's looking for Scholz?
Yeah, look, I mean, right now he is facing a bit of an uphill battle by all metrics. He certainly is behind in the polls significantly. His party is running third right now behind the main Conservative Party, the CDU, the former party of Angela Merkel, and also the far-right AfD. He does have some significant room to try and catch up with. Right now, though, he certainly is not going down without a fight. I mean, we follow his campaign here every day. He is out on the campaign trail. I think probably this trip to Davos was a slightly unnecessary distraction, because he really is going to have to try and use these final days in office to try and claw back some of that support. Right now, Friedrich Merz seems to be the real front runner to be the new Chancellor of Germany. Certainly the polls would indicate he is in pole position. He put out a statement yesterday in English, it should be mentioned, directed to President Trump, saying that if the German people choose him as the next Chancellor, he looks forward to working with the new administration in Washington.
Trent, thank you for that. Our correspondent, Trent Murray, in Berlin.
Well, the European Union wants to work with the United States. That was the message from European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Trump has warned that he's looking to reverse America's trade deficit with the EU, either through tariffs or raising energy exports. Well, let's talk to our correspondent, Will Denslow, who is in Brussels. So, Will, what have European leaders been saying?
Well, European leaders would have been listening to Donald Trump's comments from the inauguration, saying, really laying out his America First strategy, saying that he wants to see America be the envy of the rest of the world. So really the calculation for European leaders is, where does the EU sit with that? How does this relationship go forward? It is a relationship trade-wise that accounts for around 30% of global trade, up at over $1.5 trillion per year. And the EU's message has been that this is an incredibly intertwined relationship, and essentially they've been saying that they're looking for a win-win scenario. The real question is, how does that fit in with Donald Trump's vision for America First? Well, when asked by Donald Trump what this relationship could mean when it comes to the threat of tariffs of up to 20% on goods coming from Europe, Donald Trump says, well, if Europe takes in more liquefied natural gas, that would be a good start. We've seen European leaders responding to Donald Trump, saying that their priority is they want conversations, they want to work with the US administration when it comes to areas that are mutually beneficial. But a clear takeaway from Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission President, was she said that she wants to be pragmatic and that European interests are, of course, of paramount to her. So very much we're seeing Europe trying to tread somewhat of a tightrope, keeping the US on side, whether that means bringing in more liquefied natural gas, but the EU making it very clear that they're also looking at garnering other relationships. Ursula von der Leyen essentially said that Europe is open for business and is looking to work with anyone where their interests align.
Will, thank you very much. Our correspondent William Denslow in Brussels.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead. Like it or not, artificial intelligence is part of all of our lives. It's even helping with cancer surgery.
Peking opera, or Jingju, is a classic form of Chinese performance art, combining the music of Chinese instruments, costume, face painting, literature, and history. It arose in Beijing over 200 years ago during the Mid-Qing dynasty. There are four main characters: the Sheng, who are gentlemen, Dan, who are women, Jing, who are men of strong character, and Chou, who are clowns. Each character has a different age, gender, and social status. Performers use four main skills, namely song, speech, dance acting, and combat. And the highest aim of performers is to put beauty into every motion. Today, Peking opera is regarded as a quintessential form of Chinese culture.
Hello, welcome back to Global Business Europe with Jamie Owen and Robin Dwyer. Our top stories: China's President Xi and Russia's President Putin hold a video call promising to further strengthen their partnership.
US President Donald Trump declares a national energy emergency, withdraws from the Paris Climate Agreement and revokes dozens of Biden's environmental policies.
And China's Vice Premier warns there are no winners in a trade war at the World Economic Forum in Davos.
Let's go to Davos now and talk to Juliet Mann, who is there. So, Juliet, how was this speech received?
World leaders are chiming in, warning against trade friction, but a lot of the people I'm talking to are very much hanging their hat on the overall theme, collaboration for an intelligent age in particular. So lots of talk about cooperation, partnerships, strengthening existing partnerships to shape an intelligent future, a sustainable future through the use of new technology. But you mentioned Vice Premier Ding's speech there, that was very well received. And what he did say on AI, though, was that it's on the one hand an Alibaba's cave, but on the other hand it's a Pandora's box, highlighting the need then to think about the opportunities, but also the risks.
We should seize and make the most of these opportunities to enhance connectivity in the digital age, promote international cooperation on sci-tech innovation, help countries strengthen emerging and future industries, and accelerate the cultivation and development of new quality productive forces. In recent years, the North-South divide has become more pronounced, and the gaps in technology, digital access, and AI are still widening. We should uphold the principle of harnessing sci-tech achievements for the benefit of all humanity. We should help developing countries build AI, intelligent transportation, smart energy, and other new infrastructure.
Ding also zoned in on quantum computing, but as Georges-Olivier Raymond from Pascal, which is a quantum computing company, said, it's going to be some time before all of that plays out.
The question of timeline is a very good one, and there are different timelines. Some people talk about 10 to 15 years. It was a take from NVIDIA CEOs a couple days ago. But there are earlier solutions that we are developing at Pascal. And we are convinced that we will see the first impact on the business in 2 to 3 years, starting competing against classical technologies and bringing value to end users. Because we have a different technology, a different way of using that. And will impact, all the sectors, starting maybe with the energy sector. We have a lot of use cases, optimizing the electrical grid, thinking of charging electrical vehicles, new materials for batteries, things like that. In the financial sector as well, okay. And also drug discovery. We developed a very great proof of concept with a French partner named Qubit Pharmaceutical, and we developed a new tool to predict the reactivity of talking sites of protein.
You mentioned energy and, safeguarding the planet, encouraging progress on nature, on climate goals through innovation is also very much a focus here at Davos. It's no surprise since, last year was the hottest on record and we've had these extreme weather events that have been causing devastation around the world. Can quantum computing help that?
Yes, absolutely. And quantum computers are also part of the solution. First of all, because they can help developing new solutions. As an example, with BASF, we work on predicting weather pattern. Okay, we can work also on. I mentioned the energy sector, grid electricity. We can help them optimizing the distribution of electricity and reducing the loss. So, first impact that quantum computers can directly have on the carbon footprint, and. The cherry of the cake, if you want to, is that quantum computers are also part of the solutions because they are also very low energy intensive. It takes only a couple of kilowatts to operate our quantum computers compared to megawatts with classical ones.
Organisers here in Davos promise that AI is going to be front and centre of the sessions and of discussions. So let's take a closer look at what's happening in this space.
The estimated global value of the AI market jumped from $136 billion in 2023 to $184 billion last year. This year, it's projected to reach $244 billion. This fast-paced growth is expected to continue, with the market predicted to hit over $826 billion by the end of the decade. This year, the US is expected to have the biggest share of the market, worth over $66 billion. In China, it's projected to reach over $45 billion. That's expected to more than triple to $155 billion by 2030, an annual growth rate of 28%. In the US, it will reach a new peak of $224 billion. In 2023, the landscape was dramatically altered when generative AI platforms, which can create images and video in response to prompts, hit the scene and was adopted enthusiastically. According to a survey of business leaders, 83% of Chinese respondents said they actively use generative AI, compared with 70% in the UK and 65% in the United States. And China also dominates in AI patents. Between 2014 and 2023, it registered 38,000, compared with just over 6,000 in the US.
As the business and economic elite debate AI in the Davos bubble, out in the real world, it's already affecting the way we live our lives. As our correspondent in Austria, Johannes Pleschberger, reports, it's revolutionizing medical care.
Tumor surgeries are usually lengthy. Pathologists carefully check every piece of extracted tissue for cancer cells, taking around 30 minutes for each sample. In Vienna, this waiting time in the operating room is now much shorter.
I take the sample directly in the OR and use our AI tool to get a diagnosis within some seconds.
The artificial intelligence analyzes the tissue in nearly real time during the surgery.
Georg, the AI tool shows no tumor cells.
Together with colleagues from Michigan, California and New York, Viennese neurosurgeon Georg Wittheim has helped develop and test the Fast Glioma AI tool during brain surgeries. The results are promising. The machine was able to detect the spread of tumors with 92% accuracy.
This is a pioneering technique that allows rapid tissue characterization directly in the operating room, and I'm sure that this technique will be widely used in the next years in several medical disciplines and also several hospitals worldwide.
Fast Glioma is a refined version of a previous AI tool. By training the new software with 4 million images, the scientists further reduced the machine's processing time.
With the world's growing and aging population, hospitals are starting to rely on artificial intelligence to deal with rising caseloads. Experts predict that once AI is perfected and built into platforms, most surgeries will be entirely performed by machines.
Robotics with AI would much increase also the precision of the procedures, the safety. So I think that's really a great combination.
Now that the Fast Glioma study is completed, Wittheim and his team are waiting for EU approval to introduce the newest AI tool as standard operating procedure. Johannes Pleschberger, CGTN, Vienna.
Kannst du mal hinschauen? Well, so far this Davos, we've breezed by Germany's Olaf Scholz, the Queen of Norway, Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky, Malaysia's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, and I had a very nice chat with David Beckham, who's here in Davos being honoured in the Crystal Awards for his work with UNICEF. On Wednesday, more headliners, including the United Nations' Antonio Guterres and Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, and we'll very much be focusing on climate change, clean energy, and what all stakeholders are doing to accelerate the green transition. So let's catch up then, Jamie and Robin.
We will talk again on Wednesday, but for now, Juliet Mann, thank you very much.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, Turkey mourns the deaths of 66 people killed in a hotel fire at a popular skiing resort.
Chinese calligraphy, or Shufa, is a traditional visual art form that involves writing Chinese characters in a stylized way. It is thought to have originated alongside the earliest Chinese characters discovered to date, namely oracle bone inscriptions from the Shang dynasty, that's 16th to 11th century BC, in Anyang, Henan province. There are 5 major styles of script: regular, 楷书, running, 行书, cursive, 草书, clerical, 隶书, and seal.
转书.
4 essential pieces of equipment are used: brush,
笔,
ink,
墨,
paper,
纸,
and inkstone.
砚.
Collectively, these are known as the 4 treasures of the study. From brush inclination and direction to the speed of writing, every twist and turn of the wrist is calculated. Today, Chinese calligraphy is a highly valued traditional art form, for it is more than just writing. It is a living heritage.
In the 18th century, a small number of products escaped from China and lit a touch paper in the West of excitement.
It's amazingly impressive because they were such incredibly talented artists.
When you talk about silk, with a value of 3 or 4 garments, you could buy a palace.
Art is traveling as a silent ambassador to spread the word about culture and civilization.
Welcome back to Global Business Europe. The death toll from a fire at a ski resort in Turkey has risen to at least 66 people, with more than 50 others injured.
Officials say the fire broke out in the hotel's restaurant in Bolu province. The exact cause is now under investigation. Let's talk to our correspondent Murat Pazar in Istanbul. Murat, what more do we know?
The fire took place in Bolu's Kartalkaya ski resort at the Grand Kartal Hotel. And it broke out overnight around 3:30 a.m., which is part of the reason the impact was so devastating. So far, it's been confirmed that 66 people died and dozens were injured during the fire. However, there's concern that the number could rise. 238 people were staying at the 12-story wooden hotel at the time. And it took place during a 2-week school holiday, and it's a very, very popular destination for families during this semester break. Many guests said they were awakened by noise rather than fire alarms. And the victims included at least 2 people who died after jumping from the building to escape the flames. And firefighters from multiple cities were dispatched, but the first trucks reportedly arrived around 4 a.m. Survivors and evacuees were relocated to nearby hotels while cooling efforts were taking place at the scene. 4 individuals, including the hotel owner, have been detained as part of an ongoing investigation, and 6 prosecutors and 5 experts were assigned to the case. Officials are promising accountability. Turkish President Erdogan stated that all steps will be taken into uncover the truth and hold those responsible accountable.
Murat, thank you for that. I'm sure we'll get more on this as further details come in. But for the moment, thank you, our correspondent Murat Pazar in Istanbul in Turkey.
Hamas says 4 more female hostages will be freed on Saturday in the next prisoner exchange. It comes as the group says they are ready to begin a dialogue with the United States after the Gaza ceasefire. A Hamas official said the group would welcome a visit by a US envoy and credited President Trump with ending the war. Since the truce began, hundreds of aid trucks have entered Gaza to deliver desperately needed supplies.
16 people have been killed and 8 are missing after a landslide on Indonesia's main island of Java. This was triggered by heavy rain, which led rivers to burst their banks, burying houses and cars in mud and debris and causing a bridge to collapse. Search and rescue efforts have been hampered by poor weather.
The UK Prime Minister says Britain is facing a new type of terrorism and must adapt to counter the threat. Sir Keir Starmer said extremist violence was more likely to be committed by loners and misfits than organised groups. He was speaking after the government launched a public inquiry into the murder of 3 young girls at a Taylor Swift-themed party in Southport last year. Starmer said failures to prevent the attack needed to be examined.
And finally, crew from the Shenzhou 19 mission have successfully carried out a second spacewalk. 3 astronauts spent 8.5 hours outside China's space station completing a number of tasks.
They did receive a little help from ground controllers back on Earth, as well as from the station's robotic arm. The crew have now completed nearly half of their mission in orbit.
The headlines again. China's President Xi and Russia's President Putin hold a video call promising to further strengthen their partnership. Xi said he wants to work with Putin to lead relations to a higher level and safeguard international fairness.
China's Vice Premier warns that there are no winners in a trade war at the World Economic Forum in Davos.
And one other story for you. US President Donald Trump has declared a national energy emergency. He's withdrawn from the Paris Climate Agreement, and he's revoked dozens of Biden's environmental policies. You're seeing live pictures there from Washington as Mr. Trump and family take part in another of the many ceremonial events. We think this one is at a church service taking place in Washington in these crowded hours of his first couple of days in office as the new President of the United States.
And that is it for Global Business Europe. Thank you for watching.
More on all of our stories at europe.cgtn.com, and do follow CGTN Europe on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok.
And you can go to CGTN Europe's channel on the Telegram app, or scan the QR code on the screen to get stories and updates sent direct to your phone.
Coming up next on CGTN, it's Africa Live. We'll see you again tomorrow, same time, same place. From all of the team in London, it's goodbye.
Goodbye.